Hey guys, Rick Stone here from Stoney Acres Gardening. Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about what I am planting right now in March and what a lot of you can also be planting in March. So a couple of important things here to begin with. I know a lot of you are going to ask, so I live in zone 6B, almost zone 7A. We're right on the edge. But more important than your garden zone is your last frost date. And our last frost date is actually fairly late in the season. Our last frost usually lands somewhere between the 10th and the 15th of May. So we're about 8 weeks out right now from our last frost, 7 to 8 weeks out. And so there's actually a lot of stuff that you can be planting during the month of March. Now, I recognize March is a crazy month. It's going to be 60 degrees today. 2 days ago, it was 30 degrees and we had an inch of snow on the garden, okay? So I know that it's crazy. I know that it's going to be, a lot of this is going to be weather dependent for you. But assuming that you can get out in your garden and do a little planting, let's go through a list of things that you can actually sow, direct sow in your garden. Put the seeds in the garden. We're not talking about transplants here. We're talking about seeds. What seeds you can direct sow in the garden in mid-March. So let's start off with peas. So both peas and fava beans are cool season crops, and they actually do really well planted fairly early in the season. Peas like to have about 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost date in order for them to start developing. Don't worry about the frost. Don't worry about some snow or anything like that. They're tough plants. They're going to be just fine. We actually have a little bit of a cheat. If you look back here, you can see it. We put down some clear plastic about 2 or 3 weeks before we plant our peas. That helps to warm the ground up so that it's ready for those peas when we put them in. So we're actually going to plant our peas this weekend. I'll put that plastic back over the top until the peas germinate. Then I'll switch that over to a fabric grow cover to keep the birds out, and we'll be off and running. So mid-March for a lot of us is a great time to get both peas and fava beans planted. Next on our list is all of our root crops. So here we're talking about things like carrots, beets, turnips, parsnips, and radishes. All of those crops, you can get your first of your succession sowings of those planted mid-March. For most of us. As soon as we can work the soil, get out there and get some of those seeds planted. The weather's still going to be a little crazy and they may sit for a bit, but we want them to be in the ground so that as soon as that soil starts to warm up, they germinate and come up. So all of those root crops you can get planted now. Next on our list for things that you can sow in March are all of your leafy greens. So kale, collards, lettuce, spinach, Swiss chard, arugula, all of your mustard greens. Any of those leafy greens are all going to be nice, hardy plants. They're going to stand up to the cold and the frost that's still coming. And if you get them planted now, you'll get an early start. So this would be your first of several succession plantings. You can get that first planting in now and get those crops growing. They're going to do really well planted this early in the season. Last but not least are your onion family. So this is going to be a little bit more dependent on when your last frost date is. We want to get our onions planted in the ground out in the garden about 4 to 6 weeks before our last frost date. So for those of you that have a last frost date in mid-April to the first part of May, now is the perfect time. Middle of March is the perfect time. For me, I'm going to wait just a little bit more. So I'm probably going to plant those right at the end of March. So I'll get my onions and my leeks planted. And this is planted by either set or by transplants, okay? Seeds, for most of us that live in cold weather environments, we don't have enough time to grow onions from seeds. And so you should instead be either planting sets or you should be planting onion and leek transplants. Those you want to get in about 6 weeks before your last frost date. For me, that means I'm going to be putting them in somewhere around the 25th of March. All right, and then the last one that I have for you is a bit of a bonus, and it requires that you have a little extra in your garden, and that's either a cold frame or a hoop house. So if you have a cold frame or a hoop house that has some space in it, you can actually get some potatoes planted in mid-March as well. Normally, we want to be planting our potatoes about 3 or 4 weeks before our last frost date, but if you've got a cold frame that's going to offer some protection, then you can actually go up to about 8 weeks before your last frost date, because the cold frame will cover them and keep that really severe cold weather off. So we've got this cold frame. It's full of winter carrots. You can see that what's left is pretty scrawny and scraggly looking, And so it's time to just get the rest of these harvested and out of the way. So we're going to go ahead and harvest these this weekend, and we're going to put 2 rows of red Pontiac potatoes in here. And that will actually give us an extra early harvest in the spring. We'll have new potatoes maybe as early as June 15th, which times up perfectly with our peas, and we'll be able to do our favorite homegrown recipe, which is creamed potatoes and peas. And we love that recipe. We love to have new potatoes from the garden and fresh peas from the garden for that recipe. So that's a trick. If you've got a cold frame or a hoop house, you can be a little more aggressive with your potato planting as well. All right, that, my friends, is the list of what you can be planting for the month of March. I've put a little written list as well down in the description. You can check out there. One thing that I did want to point out for you, if you are new to gardening, we have a really fun workshop that we have put together for new gardeners. It's free. It's called the New Gardeners Workshop, and there's a link down in the description of this video that you can click on, or you can click on this link right up here. That'll take you over. You can sign up for that workshop for free. And it's a good solid 45 minutes worth of material for you to teach you a little bit more about what you need to be doing this spring to get your garden ready if you're a first-time gardener. All right, that, my friends, is all I have for you for this week. Everybody have a fantastic week. Happy gardening.